Hello, hello. It's that time of the week again. And that time of the night as well. That time of the night. What's up, Oliver Parker? 4 numbers. Welcome. My bots are actually punctual this time around. Fuck, it took them a while. Damn. Oh, I added a new emote. Wagga. This one is supposed to be called Aga, but Better TTV doesn't let you name it that. Which is really annoying. But nonetheless, you know, we fucking Christ, what am I saying? Yes in French? We prevail. We prevail. But yeah, it's stream time. Hi. I hope you have all been well over the weekends. One of my nicotine sticks just ran out with no sign of it emptying before it would do that, but it just did anyway. It decided to give up on me, which is great. I love that feeling. So that's kind of sad. I don't have any money for more, but it's probably a good thing. I went to the movie in a park thingy, and the movie was buns. Do you remember what it was? Or you just know it sucked? I can find it. Sounds like a hassle. You don't gotta do all that if you don't want to. It's a simple link. Well, you don't have perms to link in here. Well, actually, Wayne's World. That was oh, okay. I think you're just too young. Really? Wayne's World. You didn't like it? The whole point of it was to be that way. Like, it's a bastardization, but it was an acid trip. Yeah, sure. I think you're too young for high art. Alright, good luck to your life as well as Ice. They blasted the audio, graded it horribly, and it's too fucking bright. It was a movie in a park. I think that was a projector's fault. I don't think they color graded the movie horribly, unless it was like a re-released version streaming from Amazon Prime, which they tend to do. That they like reprocess movies all the time. Sometimes, the more egregious example would be like The Matrix, where people remember it being greener, or maybe it was greener than it's shown now, like, you know, all that sort of stuff. But I can tell you, Wayne's World is not graded horribly. Alright. And look, I don't take you to be a film buff if you had to remember that it was Wayne's World. Because it's fucking Wayne's World. Come on. You know, Hollywood, the movie, it was just loud. The experience was buns, is what you're saying. I think that's an important distinction to make, because, like, there's this in the movie in the park experience, which is perfectly reasonable, then there's this in Wayne's World. Millimeters. 2 different things. Anyway, it's time for this thing. So, over the weekend, I got a little frantic when it came to making music. I just kind of wanted to do that more, and I did it more. And I did it. I definitely did that. I made a song for an alt account, and then I made another song for another alt account the day after making that first song, because I just felt like making music for some reason. I don't know. I just felt like throwing some shit together that had like a particular groove, and That's how this track came about. Life is weird when you aren't streaming because they stop fully rendering my environment. No, yeah, it's like a low detail rendering instead to save space on processing. To save processing power. A low poly render. Yeah, yeah. Now I know what that low poly life is like. Now I'm gonna poly one. Ha! Got it, because I'm gonna... You know what, let's not. That was like a 6 out of 10. Optimistically. So, this track that I posted... to... Yeah, whatever. No, this is just track that my friend sent me. Their account name is Smoke Bomb. You know. But yeah, like, I made this thing, and the released version is lower pitch and slowed down because I slow the whole thing down on resample to be like something plus or minus 50 cents because that's like the dariacies. I personally hate that shit, but like people did it in hyperpop all the time, or like the I guess the digicore wave as well. Like everything's microtonal. I just hate it myself just because I don't like the idea. I don't know, my DJ brain, despite not really being one, it is buzzing. God damn it. My DJ brain, despite not being one, disagrees with the idea of microtonality. You know, and it just seems a little tedious to do. Like, for what? You know? Like, when you're listening to the song, I don't really think it changes the perceived mood all that much. But that's just my little 50-cent rant. I just always go the whole dollar. But, like, when I'm posting to... The only alt that I didn't do it for... Or no, did I do it for the other one as well? Still not mine sour. I didn't. I just left it as is. Interesting, right. When I'm posting to alt accounts, you know, I'm trying to like it's more like fitting in with the scene in a way, right? Also, I never said hi to Amber. I feel bad. It's like it's a way of fitting in with the scene, you know, because that's the whole point of when I'm making an alt account is like I'm kind of stooping to trends and, well, actually no, never really stooping to trends, but like, you know, making a sound that fits more like what surrounds it, kind of, but also just having more fun and making less intelligent decisions. You know, the later Smoke Bomb tracks definitely got a bit more complicated as time went on, just because I felt like the ideas that I had on the table deserved something a bit more. But this was just, you know, completely thrown together. I promise it was. It was like, I just opened FL Studio and I'm like, okay, I'm going to work on a Smoke Bomb track now. And that process started with looking for some pop song that I have on my computer that I can use as the intro instrumental, because that's just the thing that happens a lot in Daria. You just kind of use the instrumental of some pop song or something along those lines as like your intro to kind of get the foot in the door. I would never do that. I would only do it like once or twice, like ever, for some reason. I don't know. I just never put two and two together. But when Lemonade Mouth released that one track, you know, when I was working on the one track and I just kind of realized like, oh, you can just kind of do that. And that's usually what happens anyway in intros. Well, not usually. It's not like people have kind of overused it, if anything. But if you go back to the OG albums, some of the songs do start like that. Not all of them, but some of them do. The ones that everyone try to copy do. So this time around, I just decided why not. So, aside from this little intro here, which is just an excerpt of the episode, it's all just that and yada yada. I just kind of based it off of that and then just went. And I'll play it for you right now. I'm assuming half of the current audience has heard the thing already, but this was all off stream, done in like 4 hours, which is kind of quick, you know. I mean, people have made more complicated sounding tracks in less time. But I usually spend a lot of time in the FLP itself ideating, not just kind of like having sounds ready to go. And I certainly don't have like a plethora of sounds here in my browser. I'd have to like search for them. When it comes to like samples and stuff and like finding the ideas for groove, and it's a lot, I don't know, it's a different process. But without further ado, here's the one Smoke Bomb track.
So, Howard, everyone's dying to know what other juicy gossip you got. Let's hear it. I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Don't embarrass me, Jonathan. You must know one secret. One thing nobody else knows. I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. I'm just a teenage dirtbag, baby. Listen to my
Very simple track. Not a lot of tracks, you know, top down. Not a whole lot happening, just a nice tight groove. Love me some Jersey. And yeah, well, thank God it's good Jersey. Thank God it's Jersey from someone from the fucking area. And not just some bullshit with the kick pattern. Right? Because there's a difference between Jersey and just somebody using the kick pattern. Alright? You know, it's the way the chops sound. It's the sounds used alongside it. It's the simplicity of it. But yeah. So, let's get into it. This should be pretty quick because there's not a lot going on. So we start at the start, which with just an excerpt from the show that is put through a bit crusher and an OTT. Very simple processing in this track. Nothing crazy going on because if I'm on an alt account, I'm using OTT. I never use OTT on main. I just don't use OTT, like straight up. But I figured I might as well slap it on some tracks here.
So, Howard, everyone's dying to know what other juicy gossip you got. Let's hear it.
And then I just have like a slight pitch automation as well. You know, simple. But it's the scene where I forget whose sister, or maybe just some chick from the school, is running the like school's like press sort of like web show sort of deal. And Howard's got some juicy gossip that he's learned from main character Randy. And after spilling said gossip, he gets confronted in the living room for some more gossip. And he kind of just freezes. You know. But I'm just automating the pitch upwards. Shut the fuck up. And then we get into the meat of the actual song. It starts. So, it's all built on this one Coldplay song. You know, the instrumental to it, pretty good. Way sped the fuck up because, obviously, it needs to fit the BPM. I was just scrolling through my computer and I remember that song existed, skimmed through it, found that piano section, And I'm like, okay, that sounds pretty good, you know, whatever. And then OTT at these settings, like low depth, a bit of output gain. A bit of EQ to like really bring the bass in. You know, whatever, simple stuff, right? And then the coup de grace. Hi, Ryson, the vocal. I might get claimed. I hope I don't.
Don't embarrass me, double dip.
Whatever. You know, I chopped it like that because it just kind of went, so there was more shit happening, because if you actually listen to the song, it just kind of goes, like, yeah, cool, it's good for the song, but, you know, I want there to be more shit happening. That just kind of created, like, a nice sort of bounce, you know, a little 4 on the floor. Simple processing again. I decided to auto-tune it because it's not like a more modern pop vocal where they're all kind of auto-tuned anyway. And, you know, if I want to like nail that vibe, it helps to like make sure things are in tune. Right. And it's a little like just a little artifacty, but like, you know, for the main chop that I use throughout the song, like it gets the job done, right? You know, it's useful. And if it's a little artifacty, that's good for the genre. You know, things sounding that way, having a little bit of like spectral bullshit going on, like that's kind of the sound that people are looking for, right? So you can get away with it, you know. And like the way the song itself is, like the vocals are mixed, it's just so sharp in this range specifically. So I needed a hefty cut before I put anything on it. So I put a little bit crush on it with a bit of the Y parameter up, which kind of like adds a little bit of noise, and a bit of like a, I don't know, it's kind of a noise, it's kind of like a gate as well, adds a bit more artifacting, but like, you know. And that's that real bit crush noise. And then again, OTT, 30%, mad gain out. Loud as hell. And then I needed to like EQ it again. Right, and then DS it because the sibilants were getting real hard. And they're still pretty sharp, but like whatever, you know, at that point you just kind of forgo it because that's like, it's a very lazy sort of track. I think if I was trying harder, I definitely would have mitigated it more, you know, tried some more processing, but that the idea is to not try hard. So like, fuck that, right? And then we get into the actual part. Well, real quickly, I have this little...
Don't embarrass me, Double Dip. You must know one secret. One thing nobody else knows.
You know, it's panned almost all the way left so that you can get some noise on the right.
Don't embarrass me, Double Dip. You must know one...
This is actually split from... Because there's like background music in this scene. You know, when she's confronting him for going... There's some background music that I needed to remove to get the vocal clean. I used mad Y parameter on like the bit crush setting of the effector, which is where...
Don't embarrass me, Double Dip. You must know one secret. One thing nobody else knows.
Kind of like noise gatey, super noisy, less bit crushy thing comes in. You have a little bit of that like artifacting in your right ear, and you just OTT that to bring it up.
Don't embarrass me, Double Dip. You must know...
You know, super cool stuff. Not, it's super simple, but it has like a kind of cool vibe, right? Barely even hear that like right ear shit, but it's hard pan left, which is like the swag, I guess, right? And then we get into the part of the song where I kind of locked in a little bit because it was a piano sample, so I'm just like, all right, now I feel obligated to cut the piano. So I did. I just kind of made a groove out of it. Really, really bouncy is what this is. You know. But that's where all the flow comes from. The flow and the bass of the drop is basically the exact same, besides drums. And that's it. And then once I heard that, I'm just like, okay, well, we're going crazy now. You know, like I just repeat the vocals. And this vocal is just also from the song. I use this vocal, well, I used this sample in like a song that I never ended up dropping. Just because I can't find the time to drop it. It's also like, you know, it's a sound of mine that's a little older, and I would definitely VIP this. In there. And so I just brought it back because it's from the same song, right? And then I'm chopping it like the same-ish rhythm as the... Apart from the sky, it's all the same. Because I could have done this, you know, or like more something like that, but I just felt like this flowed better. You know, because you have where is it? You have it playing here and there as well, right? So it's symmetrical, you know. It is a little loud compared to the... But like, you know, from the context and like and where we came from, your ear is still focused on this, like the main vocal, and just kind of comes in to support that. And obviously car crash. Just obviously car crash, because you know, that's what we're doing here, right? And then the only like nerdy thing that I do here in the intro is to slightly tighten things up more is this. Is being controlled by peak controller. If it wasn't the case, it would just kind of be like... Which is still fine. You know, it's fine. I just want it to be a little cooler, so... I'm taking the... Oh yeah, this is a little process, isn't it? I'm taking this thing and I'm putting it through a peak controller. And it's controlling the balance here. And the way it's linked, it's input times 0.8 because when it's at 100, when the knob is at 100% volume, it's at 80% value, right? So if I want to represent that properly and also have the peak controller be going to 1 and not 0.8, then I got to do that little math thing to make sure it doesn't go above 100. Now the processing for this Coldplay vocal, it's a little, I think it's, I just dragged these two from the vocal here and then the de-esser as well, which looks like it's not even activated. No, because it isn't activated because I did this, right? Like the vocal itself is fine dry, but you know, gotta like daria it up, right? So that's OTT and EQ. And you gotta EQ the hell out of it, because there's a lot of mid stuff happening. Gotta make room for the Teenage Dirtbag and cut the lows out, because it's like popping and clicking, because I didn't cut it right. But I didn't care to find the zero crossing, you know? At that point, you're trying too hard. You know, whatever, right? And then I decided to add like a hyper dimension in hopes that it would take it out of the center a little bit to make even more room for the Teenage Dirtbag vocal while still being wide. which it kind of does. I mean, I don't know. It's just there to be more stereo, really. Which you don't need. You can just use a like a mid-side compressor in this case, because there's already a lot of stereo present. So, but I just figured it would sound Daria if I used a hyper dimension, which it kind of does. So like, whatever, right? And it's almost drop time. We're almost there. It's aside from these toms, which are just default FL toms. You know, from Mode Audio, House Gen Tom 6. And they're just pitched a certain way. I would pogo them if I was feeling cool. But I kind of don't care that much. And then distorted. And then made louder, and that's it. Simple, simple. Drop time. So, the drop is also really simple, believe it or not. It's built on a drum groove that's a little odd, but like, you know, kind of steezy. It was basically built on da da ga da da ga da. Nothing is landing like in the half note. It's, or I guess no, this is a quarter note. Nothing is landing in an eighth note. It's all like a 16th off from an eighth note. Like that feels too regular, right? I wanted to do something cooler. As for the kick itself, it's essentially just a kick from a jersey pack, but with Twerk Nation presets, whereas this one, and a bit of a transient shaper for extra click, you know, and then this snare is from a boom bap pack. It's how it normally sounds, and just cut the hell out of it, put some stereo on that hoe, and then transient shaper for some extra click. Simple, simple. And then I added like a little perk and triangle thing, like pitched way down. Yeah, pitched down like a whole octave. So I'm gonna say hi because of studio stuff and all that, because I got a project that comes out on the 15th, which is why I'm missing stream so much. Sorry, it's fine. I think you were here last time, weren't you? I remember, unless my memory's faulty. But yeah, I hope that project's going well. So yeah, that's the whole drum groove, and it loops. Well, there's a little thing there. Simple, simple. And then the bass, aside from me moving the beginning note over, which I don't need to do because of the sidechain I chose, you know, I could just kind of do this. Wait, the sidechain's off. What? Oops, sorry. You know, it's like, it's the same, but I guess there's a bit more punch when you purposefully started on the note there. The flow is basically the exact same as the sample from the intro. Simple, you know, but it bounces really nice. It just bounces really nice. That's kind of the crux of it. And as for the bass itself, it's kind of weird because I don't normally do it like this, but it's the saw bass. I think I changed it from, it's supposed to look like this, but it looks like this. It's the same thing. I mean, the face is flipped, but it's the same thing, all intents and purposes. I was like trialing and erroring using this wavetable versus the other one, but I landed on this one anyway. And and it is basically just a saw with some noise and distortion. And that's like most of the sounds. You know, I wanted this initially to have like a darker vibe and like not have as much high end. But like, you know, it went the way it went. So I put a nonlinear filter to start. That was kind of the vibe I was aiming for. Like, it would end there and I'd make it a little louder. And I think I did some peak controller stuff. Oh, no, wait, this is for later. This is for later. Don't worry about that. I did the thing I usually do where I put the low end through a Maximus and just squeeze the hell out of it so it's more consistent. Kind of a no-no, but I don't care. And an obscene cut at 300, an obscene lift at 10k to compensate for the nonlinear filter, and then an obscene lift and gain so that I make sure it like kind of eats into everything in a nice way. You know, it's a super bassy song, this. And then I guess I might as well talk about what makes the bass sound even noisier. It's just a noise layer. Just some random, I think it's from Serum 2. It's a stereo white noise layer that's being controlled by the P controller from earlier. I would do this with a limiter and a sidechain because it's way faster than a P controller. P controllers have, even on like maximum decay speed, they still have some smoothing that you can't really mitigate. So you just have to like eat that, which is fine if you want the delay compensation to not be fucked up by sidechaining something, which I don't want it to be fucked up. So P controller it is. And I think I linked it the same way I did the other one where it's 0.8 times input because, you know, this is going at 100 or 1, and that would make this go over 80, which is over 100% volume by Balance's standards. So I have to do some math. Hi, Joseph, 4 numbers. Welcome to the stream. Breaking down this little track I threw together. A bit of a lift in high end. Initially, it was going to be like, yeah, like darker, like sort of like this. But after like listening to it a couple times, I felt like leaning into the noise more kind of fits. In isolation, it sounds really noisy, but it does a good job in the full mix, and then a little exhaust. You know. I did the P controller thing so that it would sound like the bass is distorting the white noise, and I didn't just let it happen in the master. So that other things can be distorted less, and just, you know, it's a nicer way to mix everything, I think. And then finally we can add in the pianos again. That's basically the whole first drop, aside from this little bass that I add. That's the whole first drop with some fills in it, you know. I will say... Oh, I have this muted for some reason. There we go. For the drop, I was gonna add like some other... If I put something in an auto in like a patcher, it's usually with intent to add more effects, but have those effects only come in for one section of the song, so I only need to use one mix knob, and also only take up one slot here. I just figured an EQ would be fine. This looks fucked, and it is. Trust me, it's fucked. There are very few circumstances in which this would be necessary. This is one of them. Because it's a piano sample, right? And they don't really have a lot of like super high-end, like a synth would. So I just added it in. You know, acknowledging that the bass is clipping into everything, so I might as well give it some more noise to clip into. And it's like, it's less noise, it's actual like note information, like it's timbre from the piano. you know, and it works nicely. And start filling. Actually, I think I might as well mention now that the sidechain I'm using is a joke. It's literally, it's not even like the steepest curve possible. It's just another point. It's just a square, you know, with some smoothing, obviously, so I don't cause any more unnecessary, you know, DC frequency bullshit than I'm already causing. But like that's how the groove sounds so tight for the most part, because the sidechain is literally a 16th note long. Like it's basically exactly this long. It's as if I put silence here every single time the drums play, which helped the groove a lot, and it helps a lot. This video was my recommendation. Interesting. Maybe you make music, maybe you don't. Maybe you might start after watching this. And then I just do some basic synth fills. You know, it's, I think this is all 3x oscillator. Yeah, it's just, I sing and mix my vocals. Fire. This might be a little bit different than something you're used to. Why is it, why is it silent? Oh yeah, there you go. It's just 3x oscillator square, low slide note, with some processing, right? Just a little bit of a nonlinear filter, some EQ to add back in the high end to mitigate that, like, the resonance created by that filter, and a balance to cut it off a 16th note before the next drum plays to keep everything tight. Oops. I was going to use an effector on max Y parameter, but like that caused too much sort of gating, you know, which I didn't really need. Like it was fine where it was. If you have chance to sample from Incredibox, which one you sample, effect 1 from Sunrise or beat 4 from Sunrise? I haven't played Incredibox enough to have that memorized. I played when I was a kid. But the only one that I use is this one, which I've auto-tuned myself so that I can use in songs and things like that. And then the second fill, I think, is actually Serum, from what I remember correctly. No, it's just... No, it is. It's a little... not advanced, but it's not like a 3x oscillator. There's a little bit of filter movement. You know, like progressing higher up the filter with a bit of a low thing. If I bypass this, there's still a little bit of filter movement, and then I just kind of... so instead of... it goes upwards. Nice. I was going to use OTT, decided not to. It sounded nice when it was natural. And then I did end up putting the max Y parameter on this one because I just felt like it would be nice to make it sound a little crunchier. I didn't need that for the square, but for this it sounds cool. You know, a little quiet. And I just increased the gain like crazy, and into a nonlinear filter you go. And then it fits the vibe. It's perfect. This time cutting it like, I guess, a 30-second note before the next beat plays, but still cut beforehand to keep the groove tight. And then I'm just bringing in the Teenage Dirtbag sample back in. Again, cutting right before the beat plays. And then at this point, I'm just like, you know, I have permission to... I basically have permission in the track to bring the intro vocal chops into the drop again, right? Yeah. Awesome. For this part, all it changes, not much. I changed into using the girlfriend slightly processed. Because, you know, I wanted, like, if there's too much high end in a sample for this specific track, I want to, like, you know, shape that and, like, really crunch it up so that it kind of fits more. I decided it needed more of a click, so transient shaper, put on that hoe, and nonlinear filter, and then bring some of that high end back in. Not all of it back in, just some. You know, this little no line with a record scratch. It's not a record scratch, it's like it's a kick and then a reverse kick is what that scratch sound is. And then I have some other snare from this boom bap pack, which sounds real nice, that I put a transient shaper on. Because it needed more of a crunch. And some EQ. And then this is like a little 3x oscillator triangle beep to make the snare sound a little cooler. Self-explanatory. This sounds like technology. Amazing. What do nonlinear filters do? To my understanding, they're just more complicated filters than normal ones. You know? So, like, it kind of does what it says on the tin as far as the modes go. Saturated, tubular, clipped, warm, biased, fuzzy, metallic, digital. That's kind of like what they're for, you know? And like if you were to try to make this filter with a bunch of EQs and you nail it exactly, you wouldn't get a result that's like this, like saturated. You can drive more into it, which increases the shape of the filter, the aggressiveness of it. The cutoff and the Q, you know. Oh, that's fucked up what it does at the top end there. But yeah, that's kind of what the kilohertz nonlinear filter is doing. And there's a bass layer being added too. I think this morning, not this morning, the morning that I was working on this track, I was also just like, let me throw together some ringy bass patches, you know, and just have them in my preset so that I can load them up and tweak them slightly to fit the track I'm working on. And that's what this is. It's fucked up. It doesn't really have much low end at all. But like, it's essentially, it's two oscillators that are an octave and a fifth apart. Let me turn the sidechain off for this. Oh, I was gonna EQ anyway. Let me just do... Why? 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 You know, coarse pitch automation on the envelope. I was automating some noise, but I sacked that off. Didn't really need it. Automating the level with this LFO. For some reason, I felt the need to turn the fine tune up 27, whatever the fucks. I don't know. I couldn't tell you why. I think I thought it sounded flat or something. And then I am adding in this add bass filter, which is kind of doing the opposite of that, actually. If I had it my way, it would be the other way around. But like, I don't care. I think it was so that I could interact with the distortion in a nicer way, which I did add. Oh yeah, and the, you know, sync and FM from B is kind of how the whole sound's being created. If I turn this to none. Well, there's no level here. The entire reason why that second oscillator is there is to FM. To create that sound. OTT, obviously. Ow. And then we can start actually shaping it. You know, no high ends. I add a hyperdimension. At these settings, no dimension, only hyper, 0 rate, a little bit of detune. The mix not all the way up. And you can click on this to change it from mix to level. If it's gray, if it's black, you can't. Interesting stuff. I learned that shockingly late in my Serum career. you know, it's pretty mono compatible in that sense. It's nice. Non-linear filter again. In this case, it's shaving off the high end in a crunchy way and adds a bit more distortion, which is how I'm using it in most cases. Just adds a bit of distortion and adds a bit of distortion in the high end as well, and rolls the high end off. So when I bring the high end back, there's a bit more crunch. And I don't bring the high end all the way back because I don't need to. All the good stuff is around here anyway, right? And there's already enough noise in the track and enough everything else that I just need this good shit right here. Obviously not too much of it. That's why I fucking turned some of it down. But that's that layer. Awesome. And the fills are the same as they were before, except this is a 3x oscillator saw as opposed to a 3x oscillator square. I was going to change the notes, but it didn't flow right. I don't know. I was going to do something like this, but it just sounded weird. You know, like this just sounded fine. And this is the same serum patch from earlier, just different notes. I tried some like pitch bend thing there. You can't really hear it though. But I still did do it. And I'm just repeating the vocal chops and everything, whatever. And now the most simple part of the track, you know, well, the start of the most simple part of the track, which has a very simple start, you know, the fill beforehand is, I think, quite lazy, just a little, you know, 6 stuff and then laser reverse kick into car crash. Same sample from the intro, as is audible, you know, except with a different acapella over it, you know, I just like, I think, I don't know what made me go with Worth It, but I think I just kind of heard in my head that some of the vocal chops could be cool. I think I heard this part in my head before I heard anything else, really. You know, but that just justified the use of this in the intro. And because I get bored listening to an acapella that sounds normal for too long, unless I'm making a specific vibe, you know, a little bit of cuts. You know, of course, I gotta, like, be a little nerdy with it, too. Right. And this is the rest of the quotes from this scene. It's literally just this part moved over. You know? But it fits it's the same vibe as the intro, right? So we're kind of, like, doing a little callback here. And as far as processing goes, it is as simple as an EQ and an OTT. That's it. Fucking stupid shit. That's dariacore for you. Trust me, I'd normally mix with like one of these where I'm like using a normal multi-band compressor, a single band, bit crush, yada yada, this, that, the third. This is dariacore, bitch. Or more specifically, this is alt account music, so we go for a simpler vibe. If you're liking what I'm putting down so far, despite the lack of crazy techniques, give a like on the stream. Would be nice of you. Helps the algo out a little bit, you know. Tells YouTube what you like to do. Might show up back here again. And then I repeat the chops from the intro for the piano. But then I do this thing where when I move the chops over, I select the slip tool and then I move it back a whole 4 measures. Because I know that after that amount of time, the bass part starts, so it just becomes this. And then this little thing was spawned from an accident. Or, no, it wasn't. I just kind of did a little... Yeah, it was an accident. It was a little happy accident, because it was just going to be this. You know? But this sounds way cooler. Awesome. Right? And then for the vocal chop, this is just what I heard in my head, you know, when I was doing it, like the ooh having a delay with the feedback on 0, so it just echoes once. Oh no, wait, this needs to be like this if I wanted to shut the fuck up. And that's the whole chop. And the whole reason why I heard it with a delay is because I'm just like, well, you know, it just sounds cooler that way, right? You know, I don't do it all the time because I need to make room for that. I'm repeating the chop from the intro again because, you know, hashtag callback. But the way this is structured, the way this chop is structured, to me just reminds me of Jersey Club. It just does. It is. It's basically how you would chop vocals for Jersey. Smoke bomb tag. And then it's the drop, which it's not really a drop, it's just Jersey. I was disappointed when I was making it too. But it just fits. You know, and so I'm not sidechaining for this section, because you generally don't do that in Jersey. You generally don't. You can. You absolutely can. I just don't. You know, it's a cooler vibe when you don't. You just have a hard kick. Which this is. Where is it? I think it's a rack kick is what this is. I mean, yeah, it's a rack kick. From New Jersey kit. New Jersey. You know, with a transient shaper for extra punch. And then I just made it way loud. Awesome. Cut 300 too, because why not? You know, little snaps there from any old Jersey pack will have this. I don't think I got it from here. I should have. And this would sound way better, I think. I know exactly where this is from, but like, let me just test this out real quick. Why? Yeah, it's a little better. But I got it from that. I guess they are time stretched for some reason. It works. It works. Fuck it. High-end edition. Otherwise it gets lost in the mix. And then Best the Gun Cock. I think also from Twerk Nation. No, it's not. It's from the other Jersey kit that I have. A lot of this like delay sound. Oh, that's an accident. Just a lot of this, you know, loud, quiet, loud, quiet. I just made this unique and made it quieter. I didn't bother adding an actual fucking delay. You got you fucked up. I did bother though compressing it because otherwise it just kind of, you know, you weren't able to hear the delayed version. I didn't want to make it louder. I just figured compressing the whole thing would be a better idea. You know, lots of attacks to let the attack through, so it can attack the attack, and it has the attack, and it's okay. Yeah. And on curve 3, it's my favorite. They are different. They're absolutely different. It'll show you how it's different. That's kind of why I like using the limiter as a compressor, because it has a line that shows you how much it's compressing. You know, it's very little tykes in that regard, but I still like using it. And then this part, you know, it's just some random 808, which is not really some random 808. It's like Jersey. I don't know how to explain how it sounds Jersey, but it does, and it's also from a Jersey kit, so that kind of helps the case. For some reason, well, I know I needed to distort it because it's basically just sub, without it. It's a sine wave. You know, there's a little bit of a click in the beginning, but that's fine. I just added more of one for some reason. To give it more punch in the beginning when it starts. North Jersey chose New York LARPers. Where'd that come from? And what side of the river are you from, by the way? Huh? Anyway. And I made it a little louder. And it's simple. Nani jump scare, get that shit off my screen. But what about the banana? Isn't he cool? Anyway, it's a good distortion plugin for basses, no matter what you say. That's why I bought the damn thing. And then the beginning of the whip crack, that it's such a legacy whip crack sound that I genuinely believe this was the old Roblox jump sound effect. From Century. Ain't shit happening there. Don't tell me you're from fucking Trenton. Imagine. No, it's probably worse. You're probably from, like, where you're from probably looks like the fucking Truman Show, for all I know. But yeah. It's not the old Roblox jump sound effect. But in the mix, it sounds like it. WRL Goons. Lol. Pine Barrens. It's probably a beautiful landscape, though, all things considered. And that's all I'm really doing for the rhythm. Otherwise, I'm just repeating the chops. It's super loud. You can tell I got really lazy during this section. Also, because you don't need to do that much for Jersey Club. Like, it's kind of simple is better for the most part. It just grooves hard, you know? And then the outro.
I know who the ninja is. What?
Self-explanatory. I put this on the same track that I put the, all these other clips on.
Don't embarrass me, double dip.
You know, so it still has that, like, sort of noise gate sound. Mad Y parameter on the bit crusher with an OTT afterwards, and then Lil Jon, and then spitting of the drink layered with a little bit of a... The fact that he's there, though, kind of ruins it. I see. But yeah, that's,
I know who the ninja is.
That's this track. How long do you usually let main account songs sit before posting them? To revise mix and whatnot? Depends on how I feel. You know, if I feel like I nailed it, then I nailed it and I just put it out there. You know, I try not to, like, get in the weeds. You know, if I'm listening to a song and there's something that I think to myself, I'll fix it later, then I know that I'm feeling lazy that day, because that's just a bad thing to think. You have time, just fix it then and there, right? But for the most part, No, I just kind of, if I nail it, I nail it, you know, I just post it. Unless it's like for an EP, in which case I wait till the EP's done, then I release it with the EP. Along with that like rollout. But for singles, which I don't do very many of, I've only done them recently, and I might post another one soon, which is not going to be like Daria at all. If you're in the Discord server, you know what's happening. It really depends. I think I'm gonna. I don't know. I gotta kind of revise a bit of a rollout for this next. I mean, single implies it's gonna be released with an album at some point. But no, it's just a single. I finally finished. If you were here for like a month ago, you heard me working on that track. I finally got around to finishing it, you know. The thing that was preventing me from posting it was, or not posting it, finishing it, was coming up with like ways to fill out the second half and like have it lead into an outro. But no, yeah, it's all like it's all good now. And I changed the way that I did stereo since the last time I made this track, so it sounds better in mono. I still say that I would still say that stereo is a little kind of weird, but like it's pretty good. Do you sell FLPs? Funny enough about that, members get FLPs. There's a thing that pops up here every like I don't know how long, every like 10 or 15 minutes. That has a bunch of text like follow me on Bandcamp or like support my Bandcamp, stream Breadcore too. And also members get FLPs for God, I should know the prices. I don't. It's like it's $3, I think, or $2 or $3 a month to be a member. It's not a lot. It's less than a Twitch sub. You not only get FLPs, but you also get a custom role in the Discord server. You know, so you can flex all the broke people and type in the channels where all the rich people live, in which no one really types because the main part isn't active enough for the penthouse suites to be an escape because like it's quaint already, but it's there for when it's needed. What's an FLP? Yo, that's a great ass question. But yeah, thanks, Jacob. XV3DF34 fucking Wi-Fi password. Jesus Christ. What a name. What a name. But yeah, I'm on FL12, so this is all just like my template. Damn, that was a fast ass breakdown. I don't want to end though. I just started. I mean, I guess I could go over the Lemonade Mouth track because I didn't do that. You know, yeah, that one's also fairly simple. Well, conceptually simple. I made half of it on stream. Well, I didn't mean the other half off stream, so I guess it makes sense. I should. Yeah, I called it "fuck dariacore" because I was pissed. It's okay. Yeah, I'll get into this. But what annoys me about this track specifically is when I made it with the intent to make a track fast, because someone was waffling about like how XYZ made that track in 1, 2, 3 amount of hours, and like it was a low number, and I'm just like, okay, cool, you know, like it's not hard to do. I just haven't done it so often. I just don't do it often. I don't have like mad presets I can just throw on shit. And it takes me a little bit longer to come up with ideas for shit, you know. Like if I just have every idea, it's just a matter of arranging it. Like, yeah, I can make a song pretty quickly, but, you know, I don't ever really practice for speed. I care too much about how my stuff sounds. And so I made this with the intent of making it quickly. The other track that I just finished breaking down, I made in about 4 hours. You know, super simple. It would have taken me 5 or 6 if I didn't do Jersey for the second half, for fuck's sake. But this track, apparently it says 7 hours. I doubt that. I think it was like 5 or 6. But there's a bit more going on, which is disappointing because I didn't want that to be the case. But it is the case. And I posted, I mean, I got this track from a friend, an up-and-coming producer by the name of Lemonade Mouth on SoundCloud. I mean, you can see all the SoundCloud pages. If you don't feel like searching for them, they're in my Discord server. I announced them in my uploads channel right here. That's my EP that's flopped. This is a Smoke Bomb track. This is Lemonade Mouth track. This is what we're going over today. Right now, I guess, to pad the timeout, because I feel like an hour is not that long. And I'm willing to go 2 hours. Why not, right? And I don't think this will take too long to break down. I mean, it looks like a bit more than the last track, because it is a bit more than the last track. You know, there's more shit happening, but there's less shit happening. You know what I mean? Like, when I was making this, the entire way, I'm like, this sucks. This is so 6 out of 10. You know, been done a million times. The mix is overblown. Even for dariacore, the mix is overblown. Which is, it's a fucking achievement, honestly. But not really. Like, I hate doing stuff that's loud for the sake of it, you know? Unless that's, like, the joke. Case in point. Hell, IDK. I guess I did EQ it. Like, that's loud for the sake of it, as like that's the point, you know? Like, that's the idea. But this is not that. But obviously I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna shit out a track, I'm making a new alt account for it, and I did, and it's Lemonade Mouth. And yeah, without further ado, here it is. God, nothing's organized. I wanted to save time on organization. Nothing's in categories or anything. I just put it all here, as opposed to like, oh, drums here, bass here, vocals here, sound effects here. No, it's just fucking all over the place, which is gonna be a bitch to break down. But that's the route I chose. So I gotta eat that. Anyway, let me, boom. No, wait, I need to turn this on, then turn this on, then stop this, and then.
Standing room moment. We were ready for Rising Star. We were ready to be her.
Wait, let me really quickly. Something happens sometimes where, oh no, this is fine. Never mind.
Standing room moment.
Okay, we're good.
We were ready for Rising Star.
We were ready for anything.
Her.
Awesome. God. If you listen closely, you can hear how bored I am during the entire process of making this. And I'm just trying desperately to entertain myself. But that's all this is, really. Is I'm just like, oh, let me fucking finish the track. I'll show you I can fucking make a track fast. So it's all spite. It's all fueled by spite. And you get mixed results via spite. And it started with a pretty generic sample. I'm doing a lot of generic stuff in this track, I feel like. By generic, I mean stuff that, like, kind of everyone does, but I'm still not doing, like, crazy, like, spectral stuff. The only thing that I think is super generic is bitspeak. Everyone fucking uses bitspeak. Like, it's not unique. It's not innovative. It's fucking bitspeak. Come on. You know? Some people still don't use it because they don't even know, like, what the plugin is, but it's like... Just don't use it. If you want to sound different, just do anything else. But, yeah, just a clip from... What do you mean chill? I'm not gonna chill. Everyone uses it. Like, I'm not everyone. I'm me. Fuck. You could if you want. I just want a different sound. But when I'm making, like, some alt-account slop, because that's what this is, I want to use some slop plugins. Shit. But, intro is from the... If you look up the music video for She's So Gone, that's like what the video starts with.
Standing room moment. We were ready for Rising Star. We were ready to be her.
And I made sure to, like, cut it so it was still on beat and in pitch with the sample that followed. And of course, OTT, low depth, high gain, little bit of EQ. You're late again. You missed the breakdown for the other track. I'm on this one now. So that's how quick that breakdown was. Oops. And I'll speed run through this one too. Huh? Yeah, I was breaking down the smoke bomb post. 140, I think. No. You know, the fucking smoke. That shit. Which is way cooler than this and way simpler too. All right, less is more. This is a track that's just more is more. This is fucking bullshit. So yeah, Lemonade Mouth instrumental to start us off. OTT, a little bit of EQ. You get the idea. And then I have the Metro Station Shaken acapella with a bit of processing, I will say. There's a lot going on here. These chops are not on beat because I can't be fucked. I just kind of like cut a random amount and just spam Control B. Because I'm fucking bored. So I auto-tuned it with this little plugin called Grayleon 2, which kind of sounds terrible, but I was going for that vibe. Well, it's a pretty good auto-tune, all things considered. I can't with the chop. Well, the Bit Crush made it better. Well, yeah, it's not really Bit Crush. It's Bitspeak, which also makes it real quiet for some reason. Oh, it just needed some time to start up. It's all fucked up because I disabled it. I don't know why it's doing this. But I'm automating in and out the mix, essentially. You know, start with like most mix, goes down to 0 mix, and then goes back to full mix for the little fill there. OTT. Why is it doing that? I have never heard it do that stupid shit before. What the fuck is wrong with you? There we go. And then it does it again. Okay, whatever. I've never had this stupid issue ever in my life, but it's happening now. It's gotta be some fucking anti-piracy bullshit. I mean, what? No, I paid for this. But whatever. Just pretend it's working. I make it louder with this little doodad I have here. I make it stereo with a hyperdimension. I'm turning you off. Well, I can't because it has latency. I need it. Fucking dickhead. Why are you so mean to me? You know, and then the bitch beat comes off. It's still being uncooperative, but let's pretend it's not. So when this comes in, we go top down here when we do our breakdowns. I start with a bass that I call violent bass, and by that I mean I just threw some bullshit together in 2 seconds in Serum. That's what this is. So it's a little nerdier than simply some bullshit, I will say. There's a bit more going on than some bullshit. If it was some bullshit, I wouldn't do this. And what this is, it's 2 saws, but I take oscillator A, which is responsible for that low mid bass, and I take away bin 1, which is just the lowest sine wave that's responsible for the fundamental frequency. Because I'm unisoning this, if I were to also unison that, it would cause some, like, you know, some mud and some phasing issue. And I just replaced that with a sub oscillator here. That's going direct out, not distorting and filtering along with everything. Just kind of goes direct out to be processed later. But it is 2 oscillators, 2 octaves and a fifth apart. Very simple. With the coarse pitch automation to make it have like the whoop shit. And then I filter it and I add in a French low pass. Because it's cooler than a normal low pass and it adds a little bit of like filter movement. Put that into a distortion. And then I add that square, which you can barely hear as is, but it's more for later, so that the bass is consistent, so that when I do start mixing it, it sounds good. And speaking of sound good, Iser is what I use. I decided OTT sounded a certain way that I didn't want with the saw bass fix, so I instead used a sound good Iser. And then to make it sound subbier, you obscenely cut 300, and that's what I did at least, and then added some high ends with a shelf and one of these, which could have just been one shelf, but of course it wasn't. And this sounds fine, but of course I wanted to be stupid and then, you know, make it worse. So I distort it more and then EQ it more. Because it's still deep and bassy, but whatever. Yeah. And that's that. And then the Metro Station vocals. Shut the fuck up, Yeats. Can barely hear it in the mix, but that's the chomp I went with. It's a little nerdy, and then I did this little... Bitch speak again! What is the point? Dude! Alright, you know what? Because it's doing nothing but adding 13.61 milliseconds of latency, here's what I'm going to do. Just for now. Limiter. We're going to add a limiter that does nothing but add latency. So max ceiling. And it's 13.61 at 600 samples. And so let me just... 13.61. So the latency is the exact same, so it doesn't mess up like the side chain. Awesome, because I don't use the bit speak ever again in the entire song, so it doesn't really matter. For the sake of the breakdown. But I have this little patch here called post intro, which has an EQ mitigating all of the, let's say, important shit, besides like some of the high ends. And then it's going into this patcher, which has a wet dry split for the delay, and the wet signal is EQ'd a little bit, so it sounds a little different on one feedback. And I'm automating in the input every single time he says shake. Yeet, I swear to God. You know, so it becomes a background sort of thing. And then yeet, now it's your turn. Okay, for the you right. For the third thing, this is the better business of the okay, yeah, you know, you get the fucking idea, all right? It's yeet with a little bit of a bit crush, I think. No, is it doing anything? No, it's only for this part. So the bit crush is doing nothing for now. And then I'm processing this normally. For some reason, I didn't just slap an OTT on it, despite also doing that later anyway. I processed this normally. And so for me, normally that's a single band compressor to start. Which is weird. It's already compressed. Why compress it more? Because that's it. That's all I got for you. And then multi-band compressor, which is meant to even out the high end and a little bit of the low end and bring some of that gain back in, so that when I EQ it, I have more to play with. You know, then I DS it, and that already sounds like pretty normal. I would just use that vocal the way it's mixed in like a main account song. But this is alt account shit. So obviously OTT, low depth, high output gain. And then we EQ that as well to make it even louder at the fundamental. Well, it's not quite the fundamental, but it's around there. Somewhere. And then I add in the aforementioned the aforementioned Incredibox vocal, because I'm feeling lazy, and this is one of the things I just kind of throw in when I'm feeling lazy. Bit crush it, OTT it, pan it left and right with an LFO tool, and then EQ it. Oops. You know, that's most of that. And then I'm adding in, you know, about as standard as it gets. I think those are completely dry. They are completely dry, because why would you mix them? This is the only, to me, one of the few like actually cool parts of the whole track is the fill that I chose. It's a little random. I'm usually a bit like consistent with where my sounds come from for fills to like build a vibe, but this time I just like looked for some random bullshit. So it's like the bass drop from the Ligma Balls. Not really from the Ligma Balls meme, but it was just used a lot in memes. You know, classic. And then that Undertale sound, and then like the sound that computers used to make whenever you double click something. Not literally, it would be like programmed. It was like a Windows thing. And then it's second half time, so we're adding in some 909 drums. You know, very standard stuff, snare build up. Nothing crazy there. Yeah, I think it's all dry, except for the clap. It's like made louder. That's it. And as for the bass layer that I add, I don't even know what the fuck this is. Yeah, it's a saw that's 3 octaves apart and a fifth, and some distortion in OTT. Oops, that's post frequency shifter. Hold on. That's it. That's essentially it. And I add in a little bit of an EQ. That's all you really need to hear, you know. All this space is being taken up by the bass below, so it's like... And then that bass, I'm automating the fill cutoff of the French low pass for the lower layer, and for the higher layer, I'm automating a frequency shifter. You know, so it's now a riser. Awesome, great. And I'm doing nothing fancy anywhere else except for adding the what I call the Lil Pump pitch drop sound effect. 80 on my wrist, 100 on my wrist, 80 on my wrist, 100 on my wrist. Yeah, it's the D-Rose. And then I just like do the same thing I did before with the shakedown vocals, where I just cut it at some random amount of time and just spam Control B and just, you know, put an automation clip for the bit crusher to make it sound like a transition. Very lazy stuff, you know. And I guess it's important to mention the little glass break sound effect that I added and didn't bother EQing. And you can't even hear it because I didn't fucking EQ it or normalize it or anything. I just slapped it in there. And then the exhaust from Kashmir. And yeah, now it's drop time. Super simple, super dimple pop and squish stuff, right? Very, very, very rudimentary. You know, the flow is nice, so that's all you really need. That's it, you know, with some space for fills. That's the whole flow. And the bass, so I don't know why pattern clips do that. Well, I know why, but fuck you. You know what I mean? Very simple. I think it's my preset bass that's in my default FLPs. This wavetable, noise, distortion. Simple. And then I add in the Maximus preset I use all the time for basses to make the low end consistent. Kind of fucks the phase a bit, but I don't care. I've seen cut at 300, little roll off at the high end. And now you have a fat ass bass. And oh yeah, I guess there's the coarse pitch automation as well at 15 hertz on envelope and at this specific ramp. I usually leave it there all the time. That's like perfect punch for me. But you can always change the taste or certain things. But I think especially if you're doing a groove that's kind of fast, you don't want the punch to like take too long to happen because then the bass sounds detuned for most of its duration and then it kind of loses its... You want it to not do that because where your bass sits in terms of how it's tuned is pretty important for how everything clips around it. And so this... I'm pretty sure it's a simple like supercell layer, 2 octaves apart with a 5th, no distortion. I don't need it because I'll do that later. That's it. That's the whole patch, and then it's for some reason cutting at 300 like it's gonna do anything when I fucking distort it. You know, but I guess the intent was for more sub to go into it so that when I eventually cut it out, you still get that grit from the distortion, from the sub distorting into the rest of the high end. You know? So it makes it seem like this bass is distorting it more than it actually is. It's pretty cool. You love Dead Cat? Ah, damn it. You added a smiley face, so that prevents me from saying something snarky in return, like, yeah, you and everyone else, get in line. But yeah, thank you. I worked hard on it. I don't normally make stuff like that. I will say I'm releasing something similar soon. Who is... at some point, I just finished it. It's alright. Took a long time to do that one too. You'll see it on my SoundCloud soon enough. I think. I hope. Unless I go back in and decide the stereo sounds too weird and I have to fix it again. Which I might. Because every time I listen to it, it sounds different. So, I don't know. But that's the plight of mixing, isn't it? Especially when it comes to making mono-compatible stereo growls. It's a fucked up process. But it doesn't have to be. The more fucked up it is, the more fucked up the result. You know, but it's a whole thing. Anyway. What the fuck? Forgot about this. So, this shit... Jesus Christ. This shit is some random serum patch. I don't know why. But it's 2 octaves, 2 oscillators an octave apart with a filter that's doing nothing. It was doing something, it's now doing nothing. Lovely. And 2 notes. Simple. Currently right now, Ghostly Screaming, I'm breaking down a song that I posted to one of my alt accounts. Which is why it's a bit more rudimentary and fucking disorganized than my main account stuff would be. And so I decided the best course of action for this thing was to distort it and then OTT it, which doesn't really help, but sure. And then I decided to distort it more because it wasn't distorted enough. Alex BRC main, I wonder if they're watching. I truly do. Well, I unlisted Huffin, so I doubt they'd be watching that. By the way, I forgot to say, I don't like talking about it as a whole, the concept, but like, yeah, it's gone now, finally. It wasn't making me enough money to justify keeping it up, and I want to shift the focus to what I actually give a shit about. Politely? Nah, not politely. You know, fucking... It's unlisted. It's in the playlist of old edits I made, so, like, you can still watch it. Fucking Christ. Yeah, I distorted it more because I felt like it wasn't enough for some reason, and then I took that and then I EQ'd it. And in the final mix, it's essentially just noise. Yeah, Square fell. Fucking stupid as hell. And then... I guess I forgot to mention this little high-pass filter I put in the intro. What? It's next to useless. It's on the master, it's a high-pass filter. How much more complicated can it get? And as far as the drum groove goes... Yeah, there's a couple of switch ups here and there. I don't really know how to explain it. It's built on... Oh, where does it start? Da, ga, da, da, ga. You know, with a bit of fills here and there. The same no-lie record scratch shit that I did on the Smoke Bomb track. Because it sounds cool in a good groove. I just put it here to, like, fill the space. And a really annoying snare, because of course it is. No mixing on it at all. That's just how it sounds out the box. Straight up. Same pitch and everything. It just happened to be in key. Reverse kicks out the wazoo. You know, just to give the subsequent bass parts more impact. I'm sorry. Fucking this thing's boring me to death. Not actually. No. And then this is where it gets real lazy. So I'll go over the fills later. This is where it gets really lazy, where I just take the pop from the hold-on vocal and just start doing 16th note shit. That's it. You know, except for the one time I hit the... You know. And then a little bit of fill action. I kind of like those fill a little bit. You know, it just kind of fills the space nicely. It fills the groove nicely, I think is more accurate. I don't know where this comes from. Sign donk. Is it anywhere here? Oh. I guess I liked it enough to save it into my personal drum kit. I never used that. Why is it there? Whatever. And then the sound that someone makes when they get star KO'd in Ultimate. In Ultimate! No! No. In Melee! Jesus Christ, there's no way I just said Ultimate. Fuck no. No, Smash Melee, the cooler one. Obviously. And then every, like, 2 measures, I'm doing this. Well, yeah, every 2 measures on the second beat, I'm doing this little thing with like hit markers. So there's the normal hit marker sound, but I put it through 8 OTTs, all at 0 everything. But when frequencies get split, there's a bit of phase shift between those frequencies, and if you do it enough, you create kind of like a ghetto like all pass filter. Is the skinny of it. You know, there's deeper mechanisms in play, like the fact that EQs are essentially just phasers, but I don't feel like going into that or it's like phase shifting, yada yada. It's a whole engineering thing that doesn't really matter. All that matters is that it creates a hit marker that sounds zappier. And then I'm using the Cashmere Exhaust 1 that I use all the time because it works. And then this part where Soulja Boy decides to come in for a verse. It's pretty simple chop, you know, but it's the natural course of action for a vocal like this. Like, this is how you would chop it, you know? You know, simple, right? It comes in with a bit crusher. Obviously, you can hear that. I don't want to disable this, because apparently turning this off and on fucking kills it. I don't know why. But it comes in with a bit crusher. And it's processed in a way that's like first normal and then not. So it starts off with another single band compressor. Why is a Bitspeak freaking out? Because that's not how it sounds normally. Oh, yes, it is. Why? Why? Why are you doing that? Frame rate 4, rate 0, sync off. I have never in my life heard this happen with Bitspeak. This is why I don't fucking use this bullshit plugin. Why does it just decide to get quiet? Do I have to start playing it from here? And then it just kills itself. This has to be some fucked ass, like, anti-piracy shit. I don't know. It's just wasting time. I don't have this much fucking... I'm trying to sleep. Not actually. I'm not gonna do that for like another couple hours. But whatever. Okay, so... I'll just pretend it's not an issue for now. And, okay, single band compression, and then eventually multi-band compression, which squashes the high and the low. And then I put that through a bit crusher, right? A very slight one, just to add some crunch in the high end, and then, And then EQ and de-essing. You ever use those HL2 and GameCube samples in the bottom left there? I have used the Half-Life 2 samples, yes, and the Smash Melee sound effects, not just GameCube sound effects, or Melee sound effects. There's literally one in this track that I talked about. I guess I speak too fast. And then an OTT. You know, a little ballista. Slow-mo, like you'd hear it in the kill feed. Or the kill feed. The kill cam. Okay. It's supposed to automate in BitSpeak for this little, like, fill section, but if I do it, it'll kill itself. So, like, I don't know why. That's what's supposed to sound. You know, it's Kiss Me Through, and then the from the What the Fuck Boom. Hi, MTCHM1. Mitch M1. With some car as your profile picture. Welcome. I'm breaking down. This is a second breakdown of this stream because the first one was too quick. These are both alt account tracks. This one is much sloppier than the one from earlier. But whatever is what I say. And as for the change everywhere else, I'm adding in another lead layer. Which you can barely hear. It's going in the same track as the other distorted bullshit, but it's the same serum patch and everything. In isolation, it's pretty loud and distorted, but because it's being played with all this other bullshit, it just gets buried. You know, the mix is terrible, but I didn't really care enough to fix it. And that's the only change in terms of like sound. The drum groove, stays the exact same aside from I add a kick clap as opposed to whatever snare I was playing earlier. You know, standard stuff. It happened again. Why? Literally, why? Damn. You know, then I'm like chopping it like on some bullshit. I add in the bit crusher and BitSpeak. It just kind of makes a note. You can barely even tell what's happening at that section. But the important part is Tayo Cruz starts to come in. And we're at this section now where I use a different part of the instrumental. You know, it's more bridge-like. Oops. What's... yeah. And Tyler Cruz vocal. Again, you can hear how absolutely painfully bored I am while making this track, because I am. I'm just cutting randomly. Except for this specific chop. The specific chop is a bit more... You know, since it fits the song, kind of. It's just an augmentation of what's already happening, you know, which is cool. I think it sounds cool, at least. And, you know, obviously the impact is car crash mixed in with some generic sound. I think it's the charge sound effects. You know, the very generic, but just reversed. And this part, it's just lost. This is like a trope in how most people make their hyperflip. They, for some reason, can never decide on what vocal is the main vocal and what is supporting. They just kind of put shit there. And this is considered boring, and how complex are the non-boring things? I'll give you a couple of tastes. Mascot IDK. Is it mascot fixed? Like...
I got a crush.
You know, then there's you know, then there's learn this fucking groove thing. You know, shit like that. What else can I think of on the top of my head? I mean, Go Out Back has a nice groove to it. Like there are a lot of other instances where I'm leaning way more into like the experimental, sort of push the limits of my capabilities, sort of territory. And this is the opposite of that. This is me only using like my feel for rhythm and like my basic ear for like my basic ear for like samples and shit like that. If you think that sounds like YouTube outro music with spinning name graphics, which first of all is intro music, and second of all, I've never heard intro music sound like that. It usually sounds more like this. So I don't know what the fuck you're on about. Fucking what's it called? I don't know. Your taste is different, and that's fine. That's why it's outro music with the subscribe graphics and shit. What the fuck are you on about? Actually, what are you on about? Also, sounds more like what I just played than all the other stuff that I played before. But yeah, man. It's fucking... Anyway, this still goes hard. Thanks. You just called it outro music, though. Anyway, this is just me using intuition and going fast and doing the most basic option for most things. For me, just because I've making music for so long, I've been making this for kind of long, this sort of genre, and I'm just doing a bunch of bullshit, you know? Like, I've done these kinds of drops before a million times over, you know, I'm just doing it again. Anyway, for this part, as I was saying, this falls into the territory of the main vocal gets lost in all the other shit that's happening, because I'm just, like, adding a bunch of other shit. So, the shake it vocal comes back. This time louder. And then I'm doing, I have these Justin Bieber vocals. I have two of them, like one's made unique so they can be on different tracks so that they can be panning at the same time. You know, it's relatively interesting. Gets lost in the mix and just kind of sounds like Bieber in your ear. But the idea is there, right? It's bit crushed, it's processed the same way everything else is, single band, multi-band, EQ'd, and then de-essed. And then I shove it through an OTT, low depth, high output gain, EQ it again because it was getting pretty annoying, and I figured this was a better way to make it like more background-like. It still kind of failed. And then LFO tool with the same curve, but the pan knobs on either one are on opposite sides. You know. Oops. Big Crush to automate the charge effects for the riser. Clap to build up. Awesome. And then it's drop time. Simple 4 on the floor stuff. I think the kick I use is the same kick from the other project. Yes, it is. It's the Jersey kick with the Torque Nation preset and a transient shaper for some extra click. This is what people call a box kick because the waveform is essentially just a square, but it's a bit more to it than just a square, you know. There's some shaping. And then I'm using like some trap clap. Ow. And I do this thing on like the end of every like second, not every second measure, but a lot of the times I just kind of I have so many tracks that have this exact like sort of fill in there. You know, and as for the bass stuff, it's alright, you know, it does the job. So we got this little... I'm pretty sure this is the exact same patch as this one, except I moved this curve over to here, and that's it. And also changed the envelope. So instead of being like a sustain, it's not that. And then I moved it over a track so that I could, instead of like automating a patcher, I just made this louder. Since it's not sustained, I have to make it louder to make up for that. And that's providing all that fat sub, low and sub, fat sub. And then this thing, Jesus Christ. I'm pretty sure it's similar. Why does the bass sound so wet? It sounds like it's actively being dripped underwater. That would be this. Okay. So what's it called? This I'm pretty sure is fuck. I'm pretty sure it's just cloned from Violent Bass, and with a few things changed. So as opposed to French low pass, I'm using a German low pass because it's another form of it sounding relatively like cooler than a normal low pass. Ow. Let me turn off the processing. And then I'm like automating in the volume of this oscillator for some reason, despite also FMing it to the main one. As opposed to before where I wasn't doing that. I'm also automating the sync to like give it more fucking dumbass movement. It is dumbass movement. It doesn't like if I cared, I'd shape it more to be closer to something that would actually fit the section, but it whatever, right? And I'm automating the the cutoff of the German low pass. So the resonance is relatively high, and I'm raising the drive, which makes it sound slightly more interesting when it hits a distortion compared to a normal low pass filter. And then I am slightly increasing the bass before I distort the crap out of it. Again, despite it already being distorted, and then I OTT it. And then I EQ the crap out of it. With a prioritization for high ends, and that's where all the movement's happening. And when the bass hits it, it just kind of clips nicely. And then that's the other layer that comes in later. Talk about that a little later. And as far as the drop goes, the vocals are... and aside from the addition of the Reaching the Stars vocal, it's just the same chop from here, kind of. You know, except I just no, so it's a different chop, but it's like I'm not really doing anything different in terms of processing or anything. I'm just like chopping it slightly differently. And something kind of fucked up that I would care to fix if this was like an actual track I put work into is the note here is the same as the note here. Oops. So there's some frequencies fighting for space and shit. It's not like it cancels anything out and like causes anything glaringly fucked, but it's enough for me to be like, okay, well, that just kind of buries this further back in the mix. And it's already kind of struggling for space, but whatever. And you know, aside from this other, I think it's one of the sword clank sounds from Melee. I'm just doing the 16th note hit marker thing. To like help the groove out a bit more. And then some more, you know, random fill. And then for this part, you know, the fill beforehand is just the Gwen Stefani stomp, obviously. It's a fucking awesome. I think there's a bit of high end added to it. Yeah. It's not all stock. You know, just to like make it a little brighter for this section. Since it's all fucking noise, I might as well add to it. And the drums are the same. I'm adding another bass layer though. As you can hear. It's a fifth above the fifth, so it makes a sus2. There's your music theory for the day. But this is the same patch as before. And I think that's it. I think it's literally just this same exact patch. But I wanted to route it. Sorry. I wanted to route it to a different channel so I could process it differently to the other thing. So they wouldn't like, you know, fight for space and all that. And I'm doing a little automation here. That's the German low pass at work. Now, the processing for this, I think, is actually the exact same, aside from this EQ at the end. Never mind. No, yeah. The EQ at the end is slightly different. But the idea is, yeah, the processing's the same as 49, but if they were on the same track, they'd be distorting each other, which, you know, I know likey. God, that layer just sounds like noise, because it kind of is. That's why I say this track is lazy, because there's a lot of layers that are just distortion. There's no, like, clarity in what note is being played or anything. You know, I'm not even changing the drums. The drums are the exact same. The only thing I really change is, like, for this kick roll this time around, I mute everything. As opposed to before where I kept the vocal playing. So it sounds slightly different, but still the same, because whatever. But yeah, I'm just looping it, and I'm keeping it going, per se. And I'm also adding in this thing, which is pretty common. Sounds like what you would imagine a computer would sound like. Doesn't sound like it's adding much, but then you take it away. Just a bit of ringiness in the high end to make it sound to give it the impression that it sounds cooler. No processing needed besides the frequency shifter to bring it in so it sounds like it's rising. And then there's this section, little halftime groove. I still think this kick right here is placed really weirdly, and I could never figure out the right place to put it. I just kind of gave up on trying. I started off with a different snare than actually plays in the drop. But yeah, these are all really annoying and loud and not mixed. Like they're in the mixer channel so that the delay compensation remains the same, but like they're not like EQ'd or anything because I didn't care enough by this point. This part's cool because I think the sound design is actually like not bad. So it's 2 layers over the bass. Again, the bass is the exact same, but the 2 layers are different. So this one sounds nice. I can't lie. I'll probably save this. Hold on. Yeah, let me just save this, actually. Other ringy fuck. And then I can go ahead and come into here and then save it as other ringy fuck. For later, because it's not bad. What's going on here is the same coarse pitch automation as the bass is doing. To give it like the bubble sort of whatever the fuck. And it's 2 oscillators 2 octaves apart. The second one is only responsible for FMing into the first one with some noise. Not a whole lot of noise and distortion. And it gets cool here when I figure out that I can change... Oops. Adjusting the sync knob adjusts the sound of that ring, the pitch of it, and so I can like bring it up an octave for the second part and make it sound like, you know, all crazy. It sounds cool. I think it sounds nice. It sounds cool. It's fucking loud though. So first order of business was turning this mono sound stereo. And of course I didn't do it in the serum itself. I had to do it afterwards with a fucking preset that I made called hyper stereo, which is just like a specific setting to make most things sound decent in stereo with mono compatibility still. You know, like they sound relatively the same mono to stereo, which is what you want. And then I'm just copying so much shit. The same amount of bass that I put into the ghetto clip, which is distorting it. If I really cared, I would probably do something like this. You know, but I don't. OTT. Not doing a lot, not doing nothing. And that's the crux of it. A little bit of a cut at around 300 and a bit of a raise in like the higher frequencies and then just pushing the gain. And to introduce it, I am, you know, doing one of these with a lot of resonance, just because I think it sounds cool that way. And then I have this, which is just a distorted saw. Same coarse pitch automation, only 1 octave apart for the 2 saw oscillators. You know, envelope on, noise on, distortion on. I eventually start playing a higher octave. You know, just a bit of OTT. A lot of distortion. A lot of distortion. And some EQ. Increasing the saw parts of the EQ, like all like the detune goodness, the low mids, decrease at 300 to keep things feeling nice and subby. You know, and the bass clips in nicely. Until Soulja Boy comes in, the vocal samples are still the exact same as they were before, as well as like the melody stuff. The only difference is like this little fill here. It's just a whoop-ah, that's it. You know, this is some whip sound from Melee and then cartoon. I could have used the whip from here, but this is a cleaner whip. Or I think I put the whip in already, then I'm like, oh, I'll just put a punch sound effect, you know. And no processing, they're just dry. And then, you know, your average. And 2 notes for this square fill as opposed to just 1. Wow. I do the kiss me through the thing again, but this time around I have a patcher being automated called Lauda, specifically Nikki Lauda, who is an F1 driver. But I felt like whenever I do obscene distortion of vocals, there's always a part of the vocal that distorts too soon before everything else and kind of makes things sound a little fucked up. So in this case, I thought that was this range, and I decreased it way before I put it, or I decreased it a lot before I put it into the distortion. The 2-note thing could be used as a ringtone of sorts. A lot of text tones are 2 notes, yeah. I put it through the distortion and then brought back the frequency plus more. It is very noisy. Oh yes, yes. I love when Bitspeak decides randomly to make the sound quieter. And it made it quieter again. Doesn't really matter. All the samples are the exact same. Everything is the exact same. And instead of actually making a fill for this, I just let the vocal do it. You know. Now, the important part about this is the kick, because the kick sounds fucking weird and all fucked up, doesn't it? Oh, all goofy and shit. So it's the same kick as earlier, layered with something. And I think they're in the same track. They are not in the same track. So this is something that I have in a random, like, Dembo kit called Ponelo encima de tu kick, which just means put it on top of your kick. It's not meant to be used the way that I used it, but I used it the way that I used it because I thought it would sound good, and it kind of does. It sounds gross. It's the grossest part of the entire track. So this sound, ow, is bit crushed slightly for some crunch, and then a chasm at around 300 and some lift at like 10k. But I kept the DC in there because I don't fucking fuck you. And you still get that like kind of like low end kick, or the low end thump from the kick, but it's everything else is kind of like disappeared behind this sort of sound effects. Let me just see. Did I ever open up a span for this? Yeah. an okay amount of DC. You would think there'd be more, but no, it's like reasonable. And yeah, I went from halftime back to Fall on the Floor just because I wanted an excuse to use this kick, and I felt like it would fit this section. Oh, yay, you're quiet again. And then outro. It's just, the scene in Lemonade Mouth where they're explaining how they got their name, and it's like an argument around the vending machine, you know, and that's basically it, yeah.
Next thing you know, it's Lemonade Mouth over here. All over it.
I'm fading in a crowd booing sound effect and some random piano sample I found that I put in key. And that's about it. I don't even think I'm putting anything on this track. Oh yeah, no wait.
Next thing you know,
It's in the same track as the guitar track, so the OTT and the EQ still applies from earlier. And yeah, it's everything. I did kind of speed through that because I didn't really do anything too complicated except for like, you know, a few instances in the sound design. For like the basses or like the way the samples were laid out. But yeah, that's a slop track for you. Nice to know that you think my good shit sounds like an outro. Fucking sick. Really encourages me to spend time on music. Still gonna do it anyway because that's what I find the most fun. This is fun every once in a while, you know. Lower the rim and pretend like I'm LeBron is kind of what this is for me. But you know, most of the music I give a shit about because I give a shit about it, and I make it like I give a shit about it because I think it's good when I give a shit. You know, then I get a result that kind of sounds like like that's a cool groove to it, you know, shit like that. Or like something more theatrical. No, this has crazy speed. Speed house. You know. Cool shits. Or, you know, more accurately shit that I care about. But yeah, this is the Lemonade Mouth track. It's in the uploads channel on my Discord server. If you want to listen to it on mutilated SoundCloud quality. Yeah, bro. Malcolm in the Middle intro. Because that's exactly what it sounds like. Oh, no, wait. I have that in my samples folder. Hold on. Things to sample. I have it in my phone's sample list. But I'll put it here, too. Is it not the... You're not the boss of me now? Because that'd be fire for, like, a Daria song. Like some slop shit. I was watching Malcolm in the Middle for, like, 12 hours today? Yeah. It's a sign. Life is unfair. Yeah, shit. Haven't watched Malcolm in the Middle in God knows how long. My vague memory is similar to that. Awesome. Were you saying that it'll be a fire sample, or were you comparing what I just played to that? In which case you are the farthest possible ever, and you're just saying bullshit. Which is a perfect encapsulation. It really lets me know, like, what your music taste is. You know, like, you're the kind of person to think mint chocolate chip ice cream tastes like toothpaste. You know what I mean? Like, that's the vibe I get. I mean, I don't blame you. Other people think that. You're just wrong. And, yeah. Vibes are shot, and that's all good. Fuck you mean? Fuck you mean? Fuck you mean? Anyway. Yeah, that's that. You know, I'm gonna keep it $1.50. This stream was kind of Middington to Tiddington, but, like, you know, we broke down some shit. The VOD's pretty useful, I think, to people who care about making music. And tomorrow I'll have something to stream. Members get the FLP. All you have to do is ask if you are a member. It's in a Discord server. You have to link your Discord to your YouTube to redeem those benefits. Please support me on Bandcamp. I am broke and need the money. And stream Breadcore 2. The music is good. And I believe in it. So... Why did my chat freeze? Whatever. Good night.